I feel quite old. I've had 4 gigs in the last 48 hours, and then like got home at 2. Then Elodie was waking up at about 6:15, so on about 10 hours sleep. So bear with me. And I also feel old because I was speaking to my buddy Jake, and he told me that he got his Fender Strat in 2016 when he got his GCSE results, which for me was 2005. That's the exams in the UK. Anyway, I wanted to make a video kind of talking about sort of how I feel about guitars. Is that generally they're too expensive. I don't know if you feel like that, but when you see like a sort of Fender Custom Shop Strat now, sort of sits around the £3,500 mark, kind of as their kind of entry level at that kind of range. To me, it seems expensive. I wanted to talk about that a bit. This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Some of you guys that are into this whole kind of like money sort of stuff and know a little bit about this, this might not be a surprise to you, but it was to me, because I thought like that the increase in prices in like a Fender Custom Shop Strat would probably be ahead of inflation or whatever. But if you put it into an inflation calculator, like £2,500 from 2016, you'd need 3,746 or something like that to be the same amount of money. So like a Fender Custom Shop Strat now coming at 3,500 about 8 years later is just about in line with inflation, which is not what I'd have thought. And I think stuff like Sirs would have gone in that same kind of price, like upwards trajectory as well. And yeah, it's just interesting to me because I thought, you know, £2,500 to me is, I think, above the upper limit of what I would spend on a guitar. I'm trying to think of my most expensive purchase. I think for me it's a PRS DGT, which I bought and then regretted and then sold for what I paid for it. I can't remember if that might have been 2,500. The other most expensive guitar that I bought that I always planned to not keep was the Gibson Les Paul Kirk Hammett Greenie, which I paid I think about £3,000 for, and then sold it again for a little bit less than that. So that was okay, but typically all of my other guitars are either, you know, bought used. So some of my favourite guitars, like the yellow Strat you see me playing all the time, I paid I think 1,600-ish for that, and another K-line I paid about 1,600 for. Some of my other K-lines, like the white one, this one, and the Telly, I was given kind of discounts for those, which was, you know, very nice of Chris to do. I'm thinking, what else have I got that's expensive? Like the Gibson Les Paul, I bought used for about 1,600. yeah, to me around 1600, I think that is about as much as I'm willing to spend on a guitar. I don't know what is your kind of price limit for you. Like, I don't really think twice about spending 500-600 on a guitar, and on lots of them. And you know, like, I've got enough sort of cheaper guitars that I could sell those and, you know, have one more expensive one, which I don't think is a bad idea in general either, because it would free up some space, right? So yeah, that for me, I think maybe is something to do with, you know, how my head perceives money from, you know, like, as I say, like 2,500 to me still seems like it should get you sort of like custom shop, and it probably could use like a used custom shop. Although I looked online, and sort of like a 90s custom shop now, if you're buying it from Peach, or I think it was Guitar, those can be crazy money too, like $3,000 for a used custom shop Strat. It wasn't like one of the master built ones or anything, just a basic kind of thing. It seems to me that does seem a little bonkers. For me, the PRS, the custom 22s and 24s and the wood library stuff, to me seem to be like really top tier kind of pricing. And the Gibsons and the Fenders used to be a bit cheaper. They now seem to all be pushing prices up there, so that pretty much, you know, you can buy a Gibson or a Fender for 5, 10 grand, 20 grand, because they're doing all of these sort of like limited releases and stuff. It's kind of interesting. I guess that's built for a luxury market maybe. But how much do you guys, like those of you that are interested in like more luxury guitars, what is like your price? Do you have a price limit that you pay for a guitar? Like, I'd never think that I would get into the vintage guitar game, because it's just too much money that I could see myself spending on a guitar. When I know, for instance, like I think K-Line's now, I think he had to increase his prices as well. I think they might be about 2.7, 2.8, which again is like quite a bit of money, right? Priced underneath a Fender Custom Shop still, but resale value is something you'd consider there. And meanwhile, at the lower end of the market, I think prices haven't actually crept up too much at all, really. Where I feel like Mexican Fenders, you know, the Player sort of series is sort of stayed around. I don't think that's increased as much as inflation. I don't think so. Those prices seem to have been kind of kept a bit low, whereas the upper part of the market seems to opened up a bit. Or maybe I'm just seeing more of these expensive guitars. That's another thing that, for me, I think because we got like Project Music near us, or you like look on Peach Guitars or whatever, because you can see that they've got like stock of 10 Les Paul Greeny hammock guitars. Like, you can see that those are now fairly mass manufactured instruments. Like, the £3,000 price tag on those seems to me to be a little bit high for like what is essentially a standard Les Paul faded with like some nice pickups. Yeah, I think I'd be more willing to pay sort of higher prices if it was from like a smaller boutique kind of builder. I think I'd be less inclined to pay that sort of money for like a Fender or a Gibson, although the thing with the Fender and Gibson stuff, it would be like a pretty safe investment. I don't know. I want to play some guitar before I try and go to sleep, but it's just something I thought about, like guitar prices, and I had it in mind that Fenders had gone way above inflation, but they actually well, that's not what I wanted to play. expect that resolution. Yeah, I had a thought just a second there. Oh yeah, so I was going to say I was playing the Mexican Fender over the last couple of gigs, and I do think that for some reason there does seem to be a thing as you step up in price where sometimes there's something that feels more quality about an instrument which essentially is the same sort of thing, right? You know, maybe it's more attention to detail, maybe it's like they select neck shapes that just somehow fit my hand better, like something about the K-line medium C neck is something that is the most comfortable neck that I've played for me, and like Jake's Strat is an amazing feeling Strat that he got in 2016 for £2,499. But there is some sort of like incremental but stuff that happens, but I guess in theory it should be possible to make a cheaper guitar feel expensive, right? If you take it to a good tech. But yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts on like what is the price that you would pay for guitars, or do you have like a cut-off point where you just start to think, well, that's too much money for me to spend on a guitar? And I think for me it's around that sort of 1,500, 1,600, 1,800 pounds sort of mark where I think, yeah, I could do that. When it gets above that, I start to think, yeah, that's too much for me. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Cheers for stopping by.